Before I introduce myself, I just want to say thank you and acknowledge everybody here for taking the time out to come and participate in democracy. And this is what democracy looks like. And I want to thank the other candidates and the panel members for taking the time out to do this. My name is Duane Nickull. I'm a candidate for the BC Conservative Party. I want to point out in advance we are not the Harper Conservative Party. This is a provincial party. I'll tell you about myself first. I'm a father. I have 2 small daughters, and I share your concerns. I got into politics because my children's school has asbestos in the pipes in the ceiling, and the current government had promised to fix it for over a decade and at the same time seismically upgrade it, and instead they had ended up giving us smart meters, which I haven't noticed the difference. I don't know if any of you have noticed, but I care a lot about the environment. I'm a Greenpeace member. My family was one of the first Greenpeace members back in the 60s. One of my earliest memories is shouting out with the crowd, "No more offshore drilling for oil." I am also a scientist. I'm a successful high-tech entrepreneur, and I currently am working. I've taken a hiatus from just doing pure computer science, and I'm working with the United States Department of Energy, trying to redeem myself by putting my energy and talent to use for the National Renewable Energy Lab. I'm working on the informatics systems for the National Geothermal Data System, which is probably one of the best hopes of clean and renewable energy, as Al Gore has noted and several other people have. I can't answer all the questions at once. To answer yours first, though, there is hope. I wouldn't be here if there wasn't hope. I wouldn't be running if I didn't think there was a way to do things. I think it's safe to say, and any candidate can correct me, that I think everyone here wants the same thing. Nobody wants to see oil splashed up on the beaches anywhere. I think we may have differences of opinion on how to best address that and move forward from it. So I have a plan. I'd love to share it with you later for developing a clean and renewable energy powerhouse economy in British Columbia. One based on geothermal, which doesn't have the shortfalls of solar and fossil fuels and wind. The 2 other renewables, and they're being intermittent, whereas geothermal is 24/7 and it's proven very reliable.
30 seconds.
Okay. As far as feeling disenfranchised, I'll try to take that right away. I have my cards, my business cards here. I welcome you to call me anytime, even though you don't vote. I represent my girls who are younger than you, and I also have a 22-year-old son. And I think that nobody should be afraid to take part in democracy. This is what democracy looks like. And good ideas can come from anywhere, so that's why we're here, to listen to each other. So, thank you.
Thanks, Duane.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you, Kai. And thank you, everybody, for, again, being out here. And I want to thank everybody on the panel. I mean, I'm up here with a pretty distinguished group of people, and I'm very humbled by it. You know, for Jane, Sterk, Bob, Caleb, Sam, Andrea, Rob, and Duane here. I mean, it's a fantastic group of people, and there's a fantastic group of people in the crowd here. Like Duane said, I mean, participating in democracy is key. And that's a huge part of why I'm up here, why I'm running. I mean, I could tell you 2 years ago, I was probably thinking about, attending these events, not too far from what you're doing right now, dabble with some interest in topics that interest me. But I got interested in, what happens to our world what happens to our society when I saw that, our government has done a good job, I think, in the last 10 years, and we as a people, you in the audience, have done a lot of work in this province and have brought us to where we are now. And the question is, what is that next step? Who makes those next decisions? I mean, you could say that I wondered whether I felt disenfranchised or not, but I saw that there was an opportunity, and that opportunity is to take part, support your parties, participate as a candidate. I'm up here because I have a passion for public service, and I love BC. I mean, this is a great province to live in, and it's somewhere I think that we can continue to build on. Part of that is making sure that we address the climate change and the environment. That's one of the most important topics of our generation. And how are we supposed to address it if the government in power doesn't have anybody of our generation there, which is why I'd like to run. Start representing the people who are coming forward and who are going to live here over the next 100 years. It's funny when, Andrea, you said that your first time, your ballot, you went up there and you voted for a woman. I'll say that I sort of did the similar thing. I went to, it was a federal ballot, and I looked and I said, hey, there's the Asian guy.
So ethnic outreach does work, you're saying?
Ethnic outreach does work, you know?
Just teasing.
Oh, hey, it's all good, you know? It's fair game.
You did bring me samosas, I hope.
I did. Brought you samosas. I got some pancit in the back and, you know, some lumpia there, too.
As an ethnic voter, I thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I did love the South American yerba mate in the back. That's good. But, you know, on a serious note here, I mean, to go there and vote for somebody just because of their ethnicity kind of made me wonder, what is it that we do and how do we educate people who come to Canada from all sorts of countries, whether you're from the Philippines, China, or from Ontario. You know, you're coming to BC because you're looking for something good. You're building a life here. And that's what I want us to do to build. And to build it sustainably, you know, socially equitable, but always focusing on the balance of the economy. Because, you know, for BC to be where it's at right now, as has been mentioned already, we've built a lot, and it's been based on a good economy. Now, we always have to put that economy in the future in the global context, and I think we can touch on that later. But, you know, for me, feeling just like you do right now in the seats, I think we can, as a group, just by participating, being here today, and engaging, enfranchise everybody in our generation by setting an example.
Thank you. Let's wrap it there. Rob.
Great. Well, I want to, first of all, thank the organizers of the event for inviting me and for being able to see what the Rio Theatre is all about. My colleagues Jenny Kwan and Spencer Chandra Herbert talked about this place a lot when the legislature actually sat, and now I get to be in this theatre, and indeed I know what they're talking about. I was speaking with the mayor of Victoria this morning, and I was telling them that I would be on a panel with other candidates from other parties, talking to young voters about climate action and about British Columbia's opportunities in a new low-carbon green economy. And I said I would be traveling to Vancouver, which is, as you know, Mayor, the greenest city in British Columbia and Canada, the green capital. And he said, you tell Mayor Gregor Robertson and his council, and anybody in the Rio Theatre who is there on this evening, to get on a ferry and come and see what we're doing in Victoria. So now I've done that. But what I like about the competition between municipal leaders for bragging rights about moving cities towards a sustainable path and showing environmental leadership and stewardship is that I sincerely hope the election, come May 14 and the campaigning leading up to voting day, is about exactly that. All of the major political parties, the independent candidates, engaging in debate on what environmental leadership looks like in British Columbia. Because while not all British Columbians agree on what we should do or what this province's strengths and opportunities are, I think most British Columbians agree that we should show leadership as a province on the environment. Within the Confederation of Canada, for sure, because leadership is sorely needed in Ottawa, and there are a number of other premiers and governments provincially to work with that are tackling climate change and reducing greenhouse gases, but also globally. British Columbia is a very small jurisdiction, but we aspire to and indeed have trading relationships with Asia-Pacific countries that are right now implementing carbon pricing schemes and showing leadership as well. British Columbia simply will not have credibility with those markets and new markets potentially in the Southern Hemisphere if it doesn't demonstrate that as a rich country, citizens here and their governments are leading them into a low-carbon future. So that's why it's, you know, of course we know it's the defining issue of our time, climate change, but governments like British Columbia, which is a small province at the end of the day in terms of its population, our leadership can play a big role to what we need to be discussing in a much bigger picture. So what does that mean in British Columbia? There are so many areas where we need to align carbon pricing with investing in public transit and green infrastructure. We need to deal with the impacts that climate change is already having in British Columbia. You only need to go to the Okanagan or to where Bob Simpson is from to see the pine beetle epidemic and drought to know that we are living with climate change, and we need to adapt to that reality. We have the most biodiverse province on the continent of North America. It's up to us to show that we can protect species at risk of extinction, and those require laws, and they require smart government to do that has commitment. Thank you.
Jane, 3 minutes.
Just 3. I also want to thank the organizers, and I have to tell you 3 young people that I'm completely moved by what you've said. And like Caleb, in some ways I don't have answers. I've got lots of questions as well as you. I'm a grandmother of 2 young boys, Sam and Timothy, and they're a lot of my motivation because I believe that they have a right to a prosperous future. And I think that we're not talking about climate change anymore. We're talking about a climate crisis. And we need to act. And my whole motivation as a politician is to say that we must act, and we must act quickly. And we have to get this under control. We have to get ourselves off fossil fuels. It's quite possible to do it. I'm like Duane. We could be a geothermal powerhouse within 10 years in this province. Well, maybe 12. But we choose to continue to align ourselves with a fossil fuel industry which is on its last legs. And we say that this is acceptable when it isn't. The other thing that drives me is we have a crisis of democracy. I'm not sure we've ever had democracy, but I know that what we have now is heartbreaking. When I watch what happens in the legislature, I feel embarrassed and disgusted by the kinds of behaviors that I see from politicians. And I know we can do better. I think we also have a crisis in confidence, not only in our politicians and our government, but in ourselves. And it's kind of the questions that are asked about how are we going to engage people? How are we going to involve people? And that too drives me, because I think that we can only do this if we're all doing it together. And that means that everybody in this room and all of our kids and grandkids and all of our elders need to be involved in a process that engages people. And we know that there are processes that can get people engaged. And part of what the Green Party is about is community engagement, citizen engagement, so that we recapture our belief that we can create a future together that we all can feel part of. We have an economic crisis. We know that this economy cannot last. The Green Party believes that the greatest thing that we can do, not only to deal with climate change and the democracy crisis, is to create strong local economies that are self-sufficient, where we recreate a sense of interdependence, where we create local businesses, where we create new jobs in the green economy. And that's where we make our investment in the future. Our future in British Columbia does not lie in the Asia Pacific. Our future lies in British Columbia, with all of us working together to a different economy.
Thanks, Jane. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for the invitation for an indie from the interior. I'm just going to cut to the chase. I'm a representative, so who I am doesn't matter as much as what I am charged to represent. I got involved in politics because I believe we're living unsustainably, and I believe that our political system is more about games than it is about governance. And we somehow have to get it back to governance, and we somehow have to infuse it with the courage to govern for the future and not just for the present and those who donate to the political parties. That's the real challenge that we have. I think we know what we need to do, and in terms of the questions that have been asked here, I don't think it's a mystery how we need to address climate change in a courageous fashion. I think the problem is that the vested interests that own the political parties won't allow it to happen. And Caleb knows that Vicki Huntington and I visited your territory and spent a week up there to investigate from a public policy perspective what we need to do with hydraulic fracking and the fracturing of that land base. So here's what I would suggest. First and foremost, stop subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. Just stop it. Number two, expand the carbon tax immediately to the processing emissions from the industrial sector that is currently exempted, the oil and gas industry, the cement industry, et cetera. Expand it right away. Number three, we need to say no to Site C and yes to an energy plan that actually looks at household energy self-sufficiency and community energy self-sufficiency that allows us to grow jobs from the renewables sector and the alternate sector. That's where the jobs ought to be coming from. And instead of spending $7 to $9 billion on Site C and billions of dollars a year on subsidizing the fossil fuel industry, we have lots of money to then look at making sure that households can be energy self-sufficient and communities. And then I would say we sit down sector by sector and say we're going to use the tools of government that are legitimate, that Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan convinced us all were not legitimate, but they are legitimate, and that is we're going to use the tools of regulation and taxation on a sectoral basis to drive you to use the best available technology to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, to reduce your ecological footprint, and to be the most competitive enterprises in the global marketplace. And we can do that through regulation and taxation and sector conversations. And then the final piece of that is we need to understand that the answer is not in a global economy, the answer is in reinventing community economies, reinventing regional economies. And that is a challenge to all of you. Politicians lie to you when we elect them on the pretense that we can live as we do, and somehow create a sustainable future. We cannot. And it's time we started electing politicians who stopped lying to us about that fundamental fact. We need courage, and the way that I would suggest that we get people involved in politics is to make it a courageous and honorable enterprise again. And in order to do that, the political parties need to stop doing what they do in terms of muzzling the system and turning it into a chess game that is more focused on the next election than it is on the next generation.
Thank you, Bob. All right.
Well, I think Sam had a really specific question. Sorry to shove it on back over to you, buddy. But I think he has a really specific question, too, that I think that we could use some clarification on. And the question I asked, which is around engaging people who aren't engaged and representing them, that really connects to climate policy. And so I'm wondering if maybe we can return to that and get some clarification there.
Yeah, Sam, do you want to repeat your first question?
Okay, first question. I actually think that we can get some nice short responses, hopefully, for this one, and we can just go from one end to the other. Can you guarantee that a government run by you and your party would be able to meet the 2020 emissions target? And how are you dealing with the challenges such as LNG emissions, fracking, and yeah?
Let's actually start with Rob, because unless something really crazy happens in the next couple of weeks, this guy's probably going to be our next environment minister. And we have him on stage here to ask him these questions now. So, Rob, why don't you go first?
Well,